foundation of the ego. You concentrate a strong trait for a long time. So super powerful concentration. It doesn't have the same thing. It gets you to a very pleasant, calm state of mind, and then they come back. Everything comes back again when you get back to normal life and carry on again. Just as uptight. Actually, haven't only temporarily removed. I think it's good to have a temporary removal. It's cooling, it's calm, it's lovely, it's blissful, it's peaceful. You can't even get like that, probably what we got here. Going on holiday, you might go to Miami, something you might get at that peace of mind just by going from airport to hotel to beach to all those things, clubs and whatever. All right, so we should resume a little bit where I was. Have a stretch as well. There's also walking meditation and moving, which we didn't even get to, but do bear that in mind. Okay, so about 5:30, just after now, we've got about another half an hour. I mentioned about the Tipitaka, tier 3 Pitaka baskets. First is all about the precepts, everything like the Buddha made, the rule, they name it for every single one of the 227 rules. There's a story. The monks found another monk having sex with a monkey. So the Buddha said, okay, no having sex with animals. Have to make a rule about it. Somebody's always done something. And therefore is why you got so naughty monks down all of the stories and all of the ins and the outs and all the different reasons why and how that those precepts came about. Quite amusing stuff, quite interesting, very insightful into human nature at the time. But one whole book of the Tipitaka precepts. 2, sutta means a thread. And so they're all stories, and they're long stories, medium stories, and then shorter stories, numbered stories, and then a whole bunch of other ones like verses. And I'll introduce you to some of those more. But the second book is all about these stories. The Buddha was all about the bamboo grove. He was meditating in the night, and along came an entourage up from the city, and they wanted to know from him, how come you blah, 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 blah. And the Buddha said this and this and this, and that happens. So there's actual stories, things that happened. Unlike this, which is the Abhidhamma, which is psychonumerical. So it's like a huge calculation system of the analysis of our experience. Very complex, quite weird thing. Not everyone likes it altogether. You have to have a special training to be able to even get into it. It said that when the Buddha first taught it, he psychically went into a heavenly realm. His mother had been reborn in the heavenly realm, and there was a great meeting of angels, and the angels listened to him for 3 months dictated. You know, when you get these sort of super kids who can do the pi to the number of 3.1 for 2, and they can remember the whole thing. Like it's a bit like that kind of thing for 3 months that the Buddha meditated, constantly transferring to them the knowledge, just like that. The code of the internet sort of thing. And then every day he would come out of absorption and then repeat what he just taught on the celestial realm to his chief disciple, who memorized it all. And then he would go and relate that to 100 monks, and then they would remember that. So how do you find that stuff, and in any kind of meaningful way? That's the next question, because you can go into a Buddhist library and you'll see those books, the leather brown books, and it's, my God, where do you start? And he's usually translated 100 years ago by old British Christian scholars from Oxford who write in very old English. Therefore spake the exalted one unto the brethren, that kind of thing. It's very heavy going, not easy to read, not even for me. Sometimes I really go, what? It's like Shakespeare. It's very, very old. So it's difficult to get usefully what's being said. Therefore, Access to insight has appeared. There's a monk, American monk called Tanisaro, who over the last 20 years or so has made this thing called Access to Insight, and it's free, it's on the internet, and it's easy to use. So I want to show you it. So this is about tools. The other thing is like how you get into this stuff. Where did you start? Did you start on page one here and start reading those, or one of this, or actually these are the longest ones, the medium length ones, and then shorter ones, and then loads and loads. Some of the most interesting ones are down here. So you don't necessarily want to do it that way, but where to start. So I want to help you on those questions. Robin was saying about learning things chronologically a long time. So there's another way you can think about doing it. Some things like this, which is inside the questions of skill, take a topic that's useful, and within it, you get to use a little bit of everything that's been picked out by someone who studied the whole bag of, this guy, like Access to Insight monk, Tanisaro, translated all of this into modern stuff. So he can then, what do they need to know? So he thought, like, for example, one of the most important things was that Buddha taught people how to ask questions. So people come up and what's the capital of, Pakistan? You don't know. And they would say, that's not a good question. A good question to ask them would be, no, that. He wouldn't just like answer any question, but he taught people how to form questions that are going to get them on the right path. Because often people are going around things the wrong way, because their whole quest is how to reach the end of the universe, how to split the atom, how to so on and so on. Why should I all this? Where did I come from? There are questions that spiral people for years. Their whole life will be spent billions of pounds to make a digital model of chromosomes of the brain of their own personal model, find their self, and I look at it. So questions of skill is a recommended reading, one of them that I've given, because it includes some of the best suttas, some of the key bits of some of the suttas, some of the key bits of some of these things in a good topic. The Buddha answered questions in 4 ways. So it's quite useful to know for 45 years, but he used a system right from the beginning. So people coming at him all over the province, and every time he just bam, 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 bam. And therefore he said that's why he was able to sit under this tree so coolly and calmly. He'd realized this was a way to do things. And he would counter question people. He knew exactly when to do that. When they would ask a question, he would shoot a question back at them in the right way. He would give an analytical answer. Can't really explain that right now. Exactly what's meant by that is a little bit involved. And he'll give them a categorical answer. And this is like something, bearing in mind, you have something with a photographic memory here. And they would come up and they would say, you're a bit young. He said, there are 4 things you shouldn't be judged by their age. And they would go, whoa. And he'd give them a proof. And he'd say, there's 4. And then another one come up. And he says, there's 7. There are 8 ways in which that's true. And they would say, is it? What did they say? Like, and they would be spot on like this. These are easily memorable. So these sort of 3s and 4s and 5s and 6s and 7s and 8s and 9s, 10s, 11s, they also collected into one of these books, called the Numbered Collection. So because he was doing 45 years, there's a lot of them. So you hold all the 11s, all the 10s, and so on. So the other one was questions put aside. So people come up and say, how was the universe created? And he would just go, that's a question to be put aside. They be discussing the answer for 3 months and then entangle and have a bloody war at the end of it and how it all happened. But the question, the Buddha knew which questions should be put aside, which ones led to the end of suffering. So very important point. Access to insight is free and downloadable. So just to introduce you about that, tools for exploring. Another one is the digital Pali Reader. Briefly explain what that is. I hope it's not going to play up. It's a little bit temperamental at times. This is a digital Pali Reader. It has the entire 84,000 suttas here. So I just say, like the sutta group, has long, medium groups, and they're numbered. Okay, so that Tiga means long, and Majjhima means medium. Sanyutta means grouped, and Anguttara means numbered. And then Khuddaka has lots of things in. I'll tell you about like poems and the animal stories, like the talking animal stories. And then when the king came to an enlightened monk, the Bactrian king came and asked him like hundreds and hundreds of questions. So this is full of very, very readable stuff. B BV means Buddha Vangsa, so that's the chronicles of the Buddhas, like all of these past Buddhas. Jataka stories are the stories where the animals that could have been the Buddha pre-past lives. Dhammapada verses. Anyway, I won't go into the whole Khuddaka, really, really full. And Gutra are the number ones. I just talked about Abhidhamma, psycho-numerical ones, these huge, vast collections of a number of matrix of psychophysical phenomena that he spoke for 3 months, non-stop. The Visuddhimagga, exposition on manual on meditation. Okay, so this thing was formed. I met the author of this, and meaning the digital Pali reader, and he did a brilliant job. Basically, any of these words you can also click on, and it will give you the translation of it. You just click on that, and it will give you the translation of it. So that's a digital Pali reader. It's a really good way to learn the structure of the books, but this one is only in Pali. But it's a good way to get familiar with the structure of it, which is something I want to talk a little bit about now as well. Yes, you can just download it. If you look up digital Pali reader, you can just download it. It's not even very big. It's only like 50 megabytes or something. Ridiculously small for, it includes like tons and tons of stuff. It also has some other useful tools within it. One of them is the dictionary. Takes a little bit of getting used to. So you can translate Pali words into English and find the meaning of words, also English into Pali. So it's a little bit temperamental, it takes a little bit of getting used to. But a word like old, you might be able to, might work. I'm not used to it. Doesn't always kick straight in, and it can be a little bit caught up because it uses flash. Yeah. So we go digitalreader.com, digitalparty.com, and it will take you to the right one. Then you'll be able to download it. So it probably is not that site. So Jara used a lot, which means old. So useful tool. Pali is a bit of a business in itself. You can't really get around it for too long before having to encounter it. I can't go into it too much detail, but one of the other tools, so that word Jara, if you wanted to search the entire library, I'll do it now. And this is it, searching the Digha Nikaya, the Majjhima Nikaya, Samyutta Nikaya, Khuddaka Nikaya. So searches here, search exactly where it crops up and how many times. And then any of these, if you want to know what Jarana Smara Sati means, just click on it and it takes you to it. Really useful, really powerful. And as an ongoing tool for serious students, that's a very, very handy thing, has done it. So it just went through the entire 84,000 and showed how many times that props up in the books. Pretty good, isn't it? So yeah, and on and on and on. Then so it will show you where that shows up, for example, which in the very first book of the Brahma Jala Sutta, in this story, it shows up there. And that's a very, very significant bit of text as well. That's one of the first times the Buddha teaches the dependent origination, how things come to be. And they'd never been taught before. He's saying that when there's feelings, Vedana, craving arises, and craving is the cause of grasping. Grasping, it causes birth or becoming, and birth causes bhavo, causes birth. Birth causes aging, death. They spoke it in the Buddha's area, Pali, northern India, around Magadha, the kingdom is called at that time. Pretty hard. These are ones a bit more hard work than access to insight. Access to insight much easier to use. So let's have a quick look at that. So access to insight, much more worthwhile you're getting, but I think everyone ought to get it. If serious, should try and get that one, at least to have it. Just want to show you the power of it. I don't want to be showing off about Pali, just wanted to be showing you that is a really use facility, can be used very much so. Access to insight much more easier for beginning stage people to use. And it comes up, I have an offline version. I find it pretty handy, but also if you ever online, it's available, it's downloadable. And I'll show you a couple of ways that you can use it. This is what it looks like. And if you wanted to look up something like anger, you can do it under the subject. So if you want to look through the subject, you can do it like that. If somebody says blah, 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 sutta, then you can look up the name of it from there. They say, you say Miga Jaya Sutta, look up Miga and you can look it up from there. It can give you the A to Z. If you want to know, I've been talking about Sariputta or Ananda, the key people, the Buddha's secretary with the photographic memory. You could find him there, or a bhikkhuni like similes, really useful. I'll show you through all of these, like the Brahmajala Sutta, we were just looking at that one, and digital Pali reader. So if you wanted to find out what that actually looks like, you go to there, B, and then look up Brahmajala. Don't tell me it hasn't got it. Well, the Mahasatipatthana would be a common one. Mahasatipatthana Sutta. Here, everyone talks about this. It's a discourse on the four frames of reference or the four foundations of mindfulness. There, so that's one way you can use this, is the index of sutta section by sutta. If you want to use this, go back to this little icon. You have to go back to that little icon. So searching things by subject would be the next one, like anger. Anger. So if you want to find out from the suttas what the Buddha said about it, anger is the only thing that's good to kill. What to do if someone is angry with you? So let's have a look at that one just to see what I heard one occasion that the Blessed One was staying at Rajaga, the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Then the Brahmin Akosa, Bharadvaja, heard that the Brahmin of the Bharadvaja clan had gone forth from the homeless life into homelessness and become a monk in the presence of the Blessed One. Angered and displeased, he went to the Blessed One and on arrival insulted and cursed him with rude, harsh words. When this was said, the Blessed One said to him, "What do you think, Brahmin? Do friends and colleagues, relatives, and come to you as guests?" "Yes, Master Gautama. Sometimes friends and colleagues come to me as guests. What do you think? Do you serve them with foods, with staple and non-food staple foods and delicacies?" rice and savory things. Yes, sometimes I serve them foods and delicacies, and if they don't accept them, to whom did those foods belong? If they don't accept them, Master Gautama, those foods are all mine. Well, in the same way, Brahmin, that you have insulted me, who was not insulting, that you have taunted me, that we have berated me, was not berating, that I don't accept from you. It's all yours, Brahma. It's all yours. Leaves him shamefaced in front of everyone else. So whoever returns insult to one who is insulting, returns taunts to one who is taunting, returns a berating to one who is berating, said to be eating together, sharing company with that person. But I'm neither eating together nor sharing your company, Bharat. It's all yours. It's all yours, Brahmin. So and so on. That's a very famous and well worthy of thinking about. So that's how you look for something under a subject, and you'll get sort of these things which are actually whole talks on those subjects. A little bit about that. Let's go back home again. That's one way to navigate around this, is just using that by proper name, like it's like Ananda. This is this one here, the guardian of the Dhamma, the Buddhist cousin, half brother. So he's mentioning all these suttas because he was constantly next to the Buddha to listen to all his teachings. So that's how you find places and people. Akosa Bharadvaja was the one who just got insulted in that the Buddha showed him up when he came to insult. So home, how to navigate, and similes are very useful. It's like the Buddha was very eloquent and very well, he spoke in very good picture words. Um, all these here have been gone through in ABC order of picture words, where he would describe things that are to do with meditation as pictures. So they're worth going through, like dung beetle. You know, when he talks about pride, you see dung beetles that roll a lump of mud in front of a ball in front of them. They just roll it and roll it, gathers mud and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. They just keep rolling it and rolling it. Often they get caught on it and they get squashed as it rolls over. He said a person with pride is like that. They roll along with a ball of mud in front of them, gets bigger and bigger as they swell up. So many, many similes and pictures. Or this donkey that thinks it's a cow. It was about a monk who was following all these noble monks walking on their boat. He was walking along and he really thought himself really good, but he actually didn't fit in and he didn't follow any rules, but he just like thought he was really good. So it was like, have you ever seen a strung of really well-trained cows? In the back, there's this donkey walking along. He said, like, people who are insincere with regard to the Dharma are like that. So, and so on. These are many of these. Look at all of these. That's a very good way of exploring the suttas because they're interesting. What's this? Head of a snake, sensuality, or head on fire, turban on fire. You know, said people who've got wrong views, they think about this. Someone who's got a turban that's on fire, they should try to put it out. And they shouldn't have a discussion, they should put it out as quickly as possible. Many of these that are amusing, colorful, and bring it to life, and easy to use as well. Tons of it. I went through this and got photographs which fitted many of these as well. Acrobats. I got lots of photo acrobats to bring that sort of more to life, which is something also with more time we can go through. And just briefly, to show you there is quite good study subjects here and study guides as well. But the whole thing is about befriending the suttas, the self-guided or the Buddhist teachings. Many things I've never been throughout the whole of this. It's just so vast. It's a huge study. The site map down the bottom is very useful because minimum what you get as long as tons of other things here is the actual same like you have a digital Pali reader, the actual whole thing, the whole Tipitaka. So any of these would be worth looking at, especially because what he's done is a synopsis, a little 3-line of each one. This is really hard to find. It's one of the few places I found it where he goes through. He doesn't do every single sutta because this is number 2, this is number 9, this is number 11. There's some gaps, but usually that's the one in the middle is quite similar to the one before, but it's just changed a little bit. So even just to read these 3 lines, like in this one, King of Ajatasattu asks, what are the fruits of the contemplative life, if visible in here and now? And the Buddha replies by painting a comprehensive portrait with the Buddha's teaching and training. You're kind of like, that's okay. You see what's in there. You don't need 25 pages long. Yeah. So nice and easy and quick, and you can skim, which is really hard to find in any option. Places for skimming are hard to find. This is a really good place where just sort of like sums up one go. How Buddha explains how skillful action are the best kinds of life. Beauty, put it aside, move on to the next one. But it saves you time so you can have a lot of sort of global overlook of what's useful and what's interesting and where and how to go through it, or like that, or these other things. Or the Terigata, those are the nuns, the verses of the enlightened nuns. Might be interesting for you, someone, to look. So any of these are written by enlightened nuns, and her mother conquers her grief over her daughter's death. The nun tells a story about it. So that's access to insight. And let's get back to this before we're going too far into those. So those 2 tools are, from my experience, very, very valuable. Chronicles of the Buddhas, something I want a chance to get onto. And just as a very, very brief introduction, that when we're talking about meditation, these are the central core teachings: dependent origination or dependent causation. I read out the party, how feelings cause craving, craving causes attachment, attachment feeds ignorance, and that causes a cycle of craving to continue and to amplify. And that's a very main teaching. 5 aggregates that we're made up of, whether you're male, female, or anything in English, German, whatever. Body, feelings. Feelings means the pleasure scale of the body, and pleasure and unpleasure of the whole range of those, and the pleasure and displeasure scale of the mind, just whether it's pleased or neutral. And then perceptions, just judging, disliking, liking, naming, labeling, identifying, recognizing, all those kind of things. And all of the conditioning that goes before it, the whole education, all everything, all strategies and skills and language, everything falls into that. That's in that type of Facebook, when now does facial recognition. It's all recognize Robin Fiasco, just like that, do facial recognition. Same sort of thing. That part of the mind that does all of that processing. And then the mind states. So you can have the facial recognition going on, but you don't know what kind of mind state will come up with it. Can be like liking, can be disliking, can be jealousy, it can be envy, it can be restlessness, doubt. So there's a mind states that come together with that perception going on. And there's a few tools in there, like the focal area where you're looking at or listening to, and attention, and attention to the eyes, ears, mind, body. So attention, intention, what the intention part of the mind, and effort and willpower and decision making. So quite a lot that goes on there. 52 altogether. And then the 6 sense doors, but that makes up the 5 aggregates, and contemplation, like specific analytical understanding, the way that the 5 work, essential for vipassana. And yet it's also used in the rules stuff. So you can have, like, there's an object, like a projector screen, an object. So someone's found walking out the door with it, like, what are we doing? So like the object of the thing, were you stealing something? So it had an object and it had a perception. I thought it was, anyone could take it. The perception was there. Then the intention was there. I wanted to take it home. And the effort was there. And then there was a result. And Robin called the police. So events are looking down in 5-fold analysis through all those 277 rules, for the way that the morality is looked at, is judged, is looked at. It's not just judged on a very subjective way, it's done in a very analytical system for everything, whether it's vegetarianism or food or clothing or property or all the things that relate to those things. And the Four Foundations of Mindfulness, which is very important: personal practice, Eightfold Path, which is the structure I showed you, Sila, Samadhi, and Panya, morality, meditation, and wisdom. Can't go into too much deeper than that now. Often that's either used as a numerical formula, like 12 steps of dependent origination, the 5 blah, 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 the 4 blah, blahs. There's 37 of those, Eightfold Path, all that numerical stuff, or just characterized stories. And there's lots and lots of characterized stories, like the one of the Bharadvaja, the insulter. That's a characterized story. It's not numerical. And then quickly, before we get to 6 o'clock, people got to go home somewhere. And suttas only relate mainly to lay life, to this central action. A lot of these obviously relate to monks and nuns and monasteries and so on, a little more removed life. So these two are guidelines that are stock standards for people wearing shorts and t-shirts. That's different, different set of stuff. The Mangala Sutta is 38 ways to happiness. The singular of that sutta is pretty huge and covers good guidance for the Singala Sutta for healthy social lay life. And they frequently, this is a map. Digha Nikaya is how many books there are in each of those books, like looking at Digital Pali Reader. Digha, there are 13 in the first, 13 stories that are quite long. Like big ones like Satipatthana, very famous one, the last days of the Buddha, the Parinibbana, when he actually died. So that's like a big epic, like many, many things described about how he actually died. He died of food poisoning, and then all the arahants came together and they all meditated and watched, and big, big events. So that would be in one of these. So they're all kind of major ones, 13, 13, 10, and 12. Then you've got the middle length ones, 10 of them, 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 12. So there are that many of those, 152. But if you've got a picture of how it is, it makes it a little bit easier. Sangha means kindred spirit. All of these ones are very nice little verses, and they include ones where I talked about where the devas come down and quiz the Buddha. And that's all in that one, the devas ones. So all of these are like that. The story of the insulter is in that one, for example. So I don't want to go too deep, just to show you a mapping that's worth also getting familiar, so that you can, recall roughly what you've been looking at, where to go and find it again. There's a book called Lessons on Basic Buddhist Culture, grades 1 and 2, and Robert scanned it. It's brilliant. So we've got a copy of that now, free PDF to distribute. So I really recommend that, again, because it includes these two suttas, and it includes a sort of wrap up of them that comes from Burma and is really, I think, very indispensable. The next, those 3 sections I just showed you, long, middle, and group. The next one is Kudika, which I showed you. It's got lots of things. I really recommend beginning introductory people, or people sort of entering in, learning a bit more, to look through these ones. The Dhammapada verses and stories. Pada is a footstep, and a Dhamma is a Dhamma little footsteps. And each of them has a story. So often they're like little 4-line things, and they're only very small. It's like the mind is the forerunner of all things, just like an ox footsteps pulls the cart wheel along behind it. It's like the first one, and they're very short. And then it will go to the origin stories. Once upon a time, a sort of like quite a long story, but not too long. So there's somewhere in the region of 500 verses, I think it is. There's a lot up in there somewhere. 500 of these 4-liners, and because of that, they encompass the main points of the teaching, so they're quick and easy to remember. Similarly, King Milinda, who was the Bactrian king, who found this enlightened monk called Nagasena, whose name means army of dragons, and just kept firing questions. I don't get it. It's rebirth. Is it the same person who's reborn again, or is it a different person? You know, they're fair questions actually. And because they're fair questions, many people also occurs to them, or they actually ask them every year, everywhere. So they're a good range of questions. And he gets the answer and he goes, oh, I think that, you mean, no, give me another illustration. He goes, well, you know, the lessons of mathematics that your teacher taught them, are they the same ones that went from his head to your head? Or, well, that one led to this one. And they're in the same way. That's how one life goes to another one. For example, he goes, yeah, and you know how one candle lights another one. Is it the same flame? No, it's caused by the other one, goes the other one. It's the same way. So it gives some illustrations that are kind of like quite novel. The Jataka stories are quite good fun. They're not to be taken literally seriously as the Buddha's past lives, in my opinion, although they could be. They were when the Buddha was developing upwards to become a Buddha. He had previous lives, so he was still developing so often. There's quite a bit of poisoning people and pushing people off cliffs and gouging people's eyes out and stuff in there. It's quite boisterous. It's like Tom and Jerry, you know. So very lively, a lot of talking elephants and crows and squirrels and stuff, but quite a lot of fun. Many morals, stories wrapped up in there. Pettas and Vimanas, hungry ghost stories like don't cause someone else to have abortion, no poison, or these things might happen. So they saw this woman vomiting blood, you know, and wailing her existence. She said in her past lives, you know, she had done all that. So it's those kind of like stories. Vimana is the opposite, where they go into heavenly realms and they see these people swimming in lotus ponds with excellent, you know, incense around and beautiful, you know, they said, what did you do to say? Oh, I meditate. I just offered, made an aspiration, blah, blah, blah. You know, good rewards for good behavior and bad rules, bad behavior, lives. So these are quite interesting. And the Buddha Vangsa, Chronicles of the Buddhas, which copies. All right, so just to give you a round view of the entrance into this enormous, colossal city called the Buddhist teachings. And this looks like an elephant's footprint. But those kind of formulas, like this one, is very good to understand using this. This is one of the best books I've come across. This is very quickly. This is the index of the verse that I was talking about, the basic Buddhist culture. This is about the discourse on Mangala Sutta on blessings. This just goes through lots of these, 4 of this, 10 of this, 7 of this, guidelines that are structured. There are the Mangala Sutta is, I made it like this. There are 38 things. It's not very good photo, but avoiding fools like gangsters, like playboys, playgirls, something like that. Associating with the wives, honoring the worthy, having a suitable place to go, um, having done past merits, having done charitable work, keeping your body and your mind well, learning much skill in arts and crafts, moral training, like taking the precepts, learning to speak well, caring for parents, caring for partners and children. All of this half are sila. They are all morality ones. This one's on samadhi, like the attitudes of the mind, like respect, humility, contentment, gratitude, listening to Dharma, patience, and obedience. And then the ones to do with insight meditation might be practicing. So, ways to make it approachable. That other one there was a map of the Buddha Vangsa, Chronicles of the Buddha Vangsa, mapped out more or less what was in it. It's a bit not enough time to go through. It's about 6 o'clock as well. So really recommend this one. This is the Singala Sutta, to just show you that Sigala Sutta it is. These kind of things. uh, four polluting actions, four evil ways, six causes or misfortune, six advantages of night drink, strolling around the night, six bad friends. Do 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 do. Really, really clear and very good to refer to. People ask me about drink, so what's wrong with drink? I say, well, six things are. That's pretty good. So that's how the Buddha did it. Came up to him and said, "You're pretty young." He said, "There are four things you shouldn't judge by being young. One is a fire. Shouldn't just see a little fire and say it'll go out by itself. It can grow up to be another one. But another one's a snake. Said it will bite you just as much as a big one. Another one's a young prince. When they get older, they might sort of remember what you said. And the other one is a young monk, who's a novice and an arahant, because they might have super psychic powers, turn you into a frog." So just a little bit of what we can get into. So I think it's probably around enough without putting any more on. It's going to come full circle. So there. So I recommend that you proceed on. I think you made the right step in checking out the group. And you can see how full the field is, and navigating it is no mean feat, to tell you. And you can waste a lot of time, just spend a lot of time trudging and dredging through some of this stuff to find out how to use it. It's quite difficult. So my aim is to form guiding you, and also we've only really covered the more academic sort of side of it. There's a lot of contemporary things like Buddhist Geeks radio station in the States, in Boulder, Colorado. And just like modern interviews with the yoga teachers now, or teaching insight meditation or something, or neuroscientists who've just been doing neurobrain imaging or something like that. So this is only to get an anchoring. I always recommend you get an anchoring and a grounding in Theravada Buddhism and understanding at least where to go to see the authentic stuff. And then, you go out from there and look at some of the Mahayana contemporary teachers like Thich Nhat Hanh or Master Cheng Yen, or many, many, many things that are going on. There are colorful surround, but having a good anchoring in this means that you've got your own reference points. You can go and check back on the old things. Okay, it's 6:15. A lot more I'd like to go over, but time's next week. So please come back next week. Do bring a friend if you want to. And I'm Facebooked up. If you've got questions, you can just literally just send anything anytime. What does Rakita mean? Protection or protector or guardian. Normally, all of these Buddhist names, it's usually Dharma Rakita or Buddhi Rakita or something, guardians, but I like it. I wanted to be called Naga Sena, which is army of dragons, but they said no. They gave me the option to choose one, and I said Nagasena because I like it, but they said no, no, something a little less. Nothing to stop me using my English name. Some people do, just not to lose it on my own friends. I kept my old name, my Facebook name, in brackets, and then gradually shifted it around, and after a while, it dropped it off. So, like, people have 4 years to decide whether they're going to stay in touch. So my passport name is still my family name. So it's not a big deal. It's meant to just inspire you. Samanera means it's a training level. We've got 119 precepts or 10 precepts. If you go up a higher level, if it goes at a higher level, higher monastics, he has 200 plus we can't even do this. We can't even sit down, a chair, many things. Can't be in a room with a. If you get that PDF, Buddhist Basics, they're all in there. You can read through them. I think has already reached that level where it's really ideal that you can still mingle with the world in a way it's still approachable, but at a certain point, if it goes higher, it's not approachable anymore. You have to go to a monastery to get this kind of teaching. So it's quite, I feel it's quite rare for someone like, because I feel it can go all the way up if you wanted to, but it's like choosing like the best bodhisattva side. You're at this level for the benefit of other people, like the one leg on the ground. Yes. Thank you so much. We're having this every Sunday at the same exactly time. So hopefully, I mean, there's so much, and I think this is so, as you can see, it's like just a tip of the iceberg, just a bird's eye view of the whole thing. But hopefully, little by little, as we go week by week, we go deeper and deeper into, let's say, each of these things, like the five aggregates. You just talked about it for less than a minute, but I'm sure you can talk about it, be it for days. It's so vast, it's like you've got to be careful just to expose you, not overexposed to any of it, but also to give you the choice. I like that bit. I want to choose that bit, and then you can explore it and then come and discuss it because it won't suit you all. Like some of the dictionary or someone go, yes. Other people like the Hungry Ghost stories, yes. Other people animal stories, not animal stories. Different on the temperament. None of this stuff. Some people just can't stand any book stuff at all, and they want something that's just something else. There's a lot of other stuff, chanting or the most beautiful thing about this is that the more you study it, actually the more you will know that is really something else. Because if you had some psychology, analyticals, and all of that, that's scientific. Because I was a biologist and before, and when you read through it, you'll notice that it's things that have just been discovered lately. Biologically, has been there 2,000 years ago. It's already a bit different. It, there is some of these suttas were actually given. Actually, the Buddha described where a baby is actually contained, and see mention what the an anatomical part on the top, of the sides, on the back, and at the bottom. Actually, and then we looked at a anatomy book that I had when I was in medicine, and then it was almost like he was describing that book, small galaxies and all of that, things that there was no actual technology available to be able to do that. And yet it's there. So actually, when I start getting deeper into it, you discover, wow, this is not just somebody out there who was very smart, who actually, said a lot of wise things, but you would see that there must be something really quite magical in all this. When I studied the Bible. I read it 3 times when I was booked cover to cover, including the chapter, including the books that nobody reads, like Numbers and right. And I read it 3 times, back and forth, and over that. But a lot of commentaries. But when I go through this, it's like wow, like that psycho-numerical thing. I also tried reading it. It's like hundreds. You would imagine it's like a magical. To me, it's like a magical map of the mind. You know, you know what you're saying. You're actually describing the Book of Splendor. So I'm very excited of. It's really worth getting into. So I hope we have most of you, if not all of you, next week and continue. And so. How many are planning to go back next week at all? Not sure. I have a medical mission. Okay. So if the medical mission, that's a good excuse. I'm going to bring a friend. Mhm. Mm. 7 or 8, so then we can keep this room. Even maybe up to 15 we can stay in this room, but once we go over that, we have to start looking at, yeah, this is quite comfortable like this, but we wouldn't want to limit it to just this room. So I think, so that's why I need to know. So bring a friend. Well, I will ask her, and I want to invite Aurora, and Aurora is very unpredictable. Last week I mentioned it, and she really wanted to come, but then last week she went to the beach. So, yeah.